I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. When I think back to launching my business 20 years ago, I think about how instrumental today's guest, Nicole Manes, was. One of my first hires, Nicole was with the agency from the very early days, through 3 office moves and through significant growth. Today we chat about the early days of NKPR, the importance of intuition, and some key takeaways from working in an agency environment. Here's our conversation. Maybe a good place to start would be, maybe tell our listeners about the first time that we met, if you can remember that even, because that's, going back a long time.
It is, but I mean, first of all, thank you so much for bringing me on the podcast. It was a long time ago, but I sincerely remember it like it was yesterday. Like the cliche is absolutely true. It was a sunny day. It was spring. I went in for my first interview at NKPR. I remember being in the boardroom looking over John Street. And you walked in wearing black jeans, black t-shirt, a very chic dark jean jacket. So NK all black everything has been a thing for a long time, everybody. And I just remember your smile and that there was a vibe. I had been looking for a place that I could kind of work and establish myself and gain a certain amount of experience across the media and communications landscape. And sincerely, when I walked in, I said, "Oh wow, this seems like something I want to be a part of."
It's so interesting because you're talking about our first office on John Street, and then we had moved to Adelaide Street. And I actually remember that as well. I remember you saying, "I'm looking for my long-term home. I want to be here for a long time." And tell me what you were looking for. What were you looking for? Like, what would have, what were you looking for? Because you stayed with us for 10 years, which I'm so grateful for. And so what was that kept you with NKPR for those years?
Yeah, well, when I interviewed with you, I had spent time as a news reporter. I had been freelancing in writing and event planning and doing some production work and documentary and commercials. But I was, PR, I had done a little bit of PR in university, but suddenly it seemed like, wait, this is an industry that is an amalgamation of all of this skill set. So I had been interviewing for other types of roles, not really PR. And NKPR, in all sincerity, was the first formal PR agency job that I applied for. And it was a fit, essentially. And it's because of the opportunity to do so many things, like literally put on so many hats, that is what kept me there. Sincerely, you're working, the media relations piece, the strategic partnership piece, business development piece, social media piece, client relations. It was just really multifaceted. Yeah, it wasn't siloed off.
It's so true. Like it's so true for sure. And if you think about even how much the industry has changed, like when you started in 2006, Instagram wasn't even a thing.
Exactly.
When I think about when I started in 2002,
Yeah.
we just started doing email. You were still calling the media. And so
Yep.
our world changed so much. And I think that one of the things I always loved about you and love about you is that you're just open to change. You go with the flow. And you pivot when it's necessary, and you do it with a smile on your face. And our industry has changed so much, and you were always willing to roll with it. And when I think about being in business 20 years, that's a big part of it. It's being open to Instagram. I remember so many of my peers at the time thought, well, this Instagram thing is going to go away, where we embraced it. We're like, it's new, so let's try it. And that was when I think about some of the words that sort of come to mind about you, it's very much that. It's like you're just always open to change and growth. Um, and that was probably one of the reasons, when I think about at the 10-year mark, and our listeners should know this. So when Nicole was ready to pursue sort of her next awesome sort of adventure, she gave me a year's notice. I remember that because I was devastated, but also happy for you. But I remember we had just finished our 26 hours of kindness, which is we basically do kind deeds for 26 hours straight for the community. And we had a celebratory breakfast at Soho House. And you came up to me and you're like, can I talk to you? The dreaded, can I talk to you? And you gave me a year's notice. And you set a very high standard because my expectation from everyone else was that too. But I appreciated it so much. Um, it was just kind and thoughtful because we'd been through so much, and I just appreciated that you did that. Like, tell me the thinking behind that.
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of thinking. It was not an easy decision for me, but I wanted to do it in a way that it would be as seamless as possible because I had had the honor to work with clients for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and I knew what was coming down the pipe for them, right? So I'm not going to give a two week notice, a 1 month notice, a 2 month notice. Like it wasn't enough, and I just knew that. So it took me a long time to come to the decision. But I'm glad that we were able to do it in a way that just kept an equilibrium and also for myself, because I'm invested. I'm still invested in your success from afar, but certainly with my clients, I was invested and I just wanted to see things through. And then whoever was going to come in my place, just work seamlessly with them and just make things as smooth as possible. So.
Well, I have to say, we still miss you to this day. Um, Nicole, what do you think the characteristic or the traits are for an NKPR employee? Like, as we sort of, 20 years later, I still, the qualities that you have are certainly the qualities I still look for today. But, what would you say they are?
Well, I would say, I mean, there's certainly certain hard skills that you may be looking for, but there is that importance of the soft skills, and that's something that I looked to you, especially, well, throughout my time at NKPR, but for those first few years, like as a mentor in terms of that client relations piece is so important. And it's also trusting your intuition, like you're in communications industry for a reason. There's something that's driving you and just tapping into what that intuition is, tapping into your creativity, taking risks, but taking risks, with people on board, right? You don't want to be flying rogue. But I probably drove you nuts, running into your office like every
I liked
time.
it. Well, our offices, I had at the old office,
The old office.
you were literally right next to me because I
Yeah.
had my office and then you were sitting right outside of my office. So we did spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So hopefully I didn't know you too much, but I just wanted to make sure that, the messaging was right, that the messaging was correct because it always counted. The details count, and even if the recipient isn't necessarily going to pay attention, it's always going to foster it for yourself. You're going to know your client inside out. You're going to know what's happening with that event inside out because you put the work up front.
Yeah, 100%. You touched on something so important. It's intuition. I actually think 95% of our job is intuition. And what you learn as you are in the industry more and more is how to trust that. Because 9 times out of 10, your intuition is actually right. But we
Mhm.
second guess ourselves so much, and I feel that when I think about the junior team, the biggest thing I say to them is just, what's your gut tell you? And then listen to that.
Mhm.
It's usually right. And if it's not, that's okay too. But 9 times out of 10, it usually is.
Yeah.
Tell me what are some of your fondest memories, or maybe not so fond memories at NKPR?
Okay, well, TIFF, as was always amazing. Um, it was a lot of work, and you kind of knew, okay, come mid-July, it's going to be like TIFF for the next, there wasn't necessarily that much of a summer, but it was always amazing, super bonding, bringing ideas to life that were literally just ideas, and then creating an experiential activation, and some of those became like ongoing for years and years. Like it's really validating. And then certainly being in the presence of certain, cultural icons because of the work that we're doing. I mean, Elton John, Catherine Deneuve. I mean, I got starstruck definitely by those, like, I mean, icons, living icons, essentially.
That's
So,
true. Yeah, we had access to, I mean, we do have access to a lot of super, super interesting people. And it is interesting. You do get starstruck and you have to sort of, for sure hold yourself back.
yeah.
And some people are disappointing. That's the flip side of it. That
True. That's true. Yeah, you're kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm in that range now. Whatever, no big deal. But there are some that certainly stand out. But it is about bringing to life things that were just being talked about 6 months, 8 months prior, or putting together initiatives that hadn't ever been done before in that way, So I'm proud of that. Yeah,
Nicole, what are some of your sort of biggest learnings from that time that you worked at the agency?
yeah. I mean, it does go back to that intuition piece. It does go back to like trusting your gut, and that there is creative ways of maneuvering. This isn't a one size fit all situation. So learning that you can trust your instinct, but certainly you're not like alone in it, right? You've got to powwow and bounce the ideas off other people, that you're not alone in it. But that's one thing. Intuition continues to, like, just thinking back on times, summoning the powers, as they say, to put out the message for your clients. Yeah, yeah, I
For
still have.
sure. What were some of your favorite clients that you worked on?
Well, I was really lucky that I mean, previous to NKPR, I worked as a general assignment reporter. So I kind of considered myself like a general assignment public relations specialist. So I did a lot of food, beverage, launching brands like Flow Water, super exciting. And I just love the culinary arts. So being able to work with chefs, being able to work with independent producers that are like so passionate about their brands, working with clients like Bloor Yorkville, where you really get a sense of the city, and working with municipal and community partners. It's the full gamut, and working with huge, huge companies like TD Bank, for example, or just like huge multinational brands. And so you're kind of getting that boutique and that like large multinational experience working with clients.
Totally.
Mhm.
Um, when you left NKPR, you kind of switched gears completely. Maybe tell us all what you're doing now, which is actually super, super cool.
Yeah, it definitely still has to do with communications.
Yep.
So there's a connection there. But after taking a little bit of time off, I have been practicing as a sound therapy practitioner. So I help individuals and groups and corporate clients reduce their stress and just increase their overall well-being through the power of deep listening to sound. And to augment that, I'm currently training to be a registered psychotherapist. So I'm studying for my master's in counseling psychology. And I also volunteer with the Kids Help Phone as a crisis responder. So I want to bring those two together, or the world of sound therapy and psychotherapy together. But I have to say that my experience in PR and marketing, as someone who aspires to have a private practice in the future, it's just invaluable. The experience that I had working uh, in the agency sector, particularly with NKPR, with all the hats that we got to wear, it's just been invaluable, like ever since, and it will be moving forward.
That's thank you for that. That is actually super, super impressive. It's interesting. I feel like you're about to get a degree in psychotherapy, but the reality is that is actually super important in PR, because
Mhm.
what we're dealing with 9 times
Mhm.
out of 10 is behavior.
Mhm.
We're trying to determine, how do we present something to the media or to the public to determine, to determine the direction of the behavior we want to take it. And
Mhm.
then I would say the same thing with clients.
Mhm.
And so that's super interesting that that's actually the direction that you're moving into.
Yeah, yeah, and studying around ethics and advertising around psychotherapy, that was
Yeah,
really fascinating for me, right? Because the ins and outs of what you can, what you can't do, and it's fascinating. So I have an inside track on how to market yourself, you know.
for sure. We should actually look at doing a corporate retreat with you, uh, because I think that would be helpful. Now more than ever, I call this a distracted generation, because we're constantly distracted. You remember the days, between 2006 and 2010, even, you could get an article in a newspaper and sell out of a specific product, a consumer product, just with
Yep,
that one mention.
yep.
Nowadays, you need that article, you need to be on social media 10 times, you need
Mhm.
to, be on a podcast, you need to have a good social following. There's 7 to 10 different touch points that need to happen before you actually create that one action that you want. Whereas in 2006, 2007, 2008, you didn't need that.
Yeah.
And so, when I think about probably what you do now, there's a lot of like, get rid of the noise that you're listening to and actually be in the present and be in the moment.
That's exactly it. And creating consistency across like all those platforms that you just mentioned, that starts, individually within oneself, right? So I help people tune in with themselves so that they can then be grounded as they, put their energy out to everything else that they have kind of going on in their life. But definitely it's harder and harder to be still and be present, just to allow for that momentary inner expansion that's only going to aid all the tactical things that you have to do in your life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by that, because even the other day, I'm always the first one to say to Eric, okay, what are we going to watch tonight? And he's like, well, why do we have to watch anything? Can't we just be still? And I was like, uh, I don't know how to do that.
Hmm.
It actually, the other day, like, made me almost a bit anxious, because it's just like, I don't actually know how to sit still in my self.
Yeah, and
Um,
yep. Yeah, and that's so common. And I think all of us have some level of that within ourselves. And what I love doing with sound therapy is that it is so easy to receive. It almost seems too easy to work. What do you mean? I just receive sound and I'm going to have these benefits and I'm going to be able to relax naturally. But it does literally work on your brain waves, so that whether you know how to meditate, whether you have any sort of self-care practice, if you just have an open mind to it, it will help you regulate, and it gives you a bit of a foundation. I like calling sound almost like a floaty device, because like you said,
mhm,
you're a bit anxious, like being with
mhm,
yourself, right?
yeah.
So the sound, we all know how to listen to music, right? Just apply that, and so you kind of journey with yourself with sound as a floaty device, and whatever comes up, you let it come through. It could be feelings of joy, it could be feelings of grief, it could be you falling asleep, which is amazing. It's very validating to me if my clients fall asleep. So there's no wrong way to receive sound. But in essence, you really hit the nail on the head. I really am trying to help people become more comfortable to be with themselves in stillness. Because the
Is it an
benefit
hour, Nicole? Is that what it is? Like,
can be, no, it can be, it's really whatever you need. But for the most kind of therapeutic benefits, we're talking 30 minutes to an hour, 45 minutes somewhere in between then. But you don't need 45 minutes per se to benefit from sound. You could literally listen to something for 30 seconds with intention and just feel the benefit, feel a little bit of that release of the tension.
I have
Mhm.
to say, I've missed you, because it's just listening to your voice. There's
Aw.
something very comforting and soothing about that. Um, I've been ending all these podcasts with uh, a question. So you have an opportunity to ask me one question. It could be more than one, but something that you've always wanted to know that you've never asked, um, and something that you just don't know about me. And so I've had funny ones. very funny ones and I've had more serious ones, but is there anything that you want to know that you don't know? I mean, you know a lot about me because we work
I
together
do.
so closely.
Well, I've always wanted to know a little more about your musicality because you are a pianist, and I wonder if you're uh, playing, tinkering around on the keys at
That's
all.
that's so interesting. And most people don't know that about me, that I finished the Royal Conservatory of Music. I can play the piano. I never had an ear for music. So, Eric we have a baby grand piano at the house and he can just play. I can't do that. I can read music.
Yeah.
Because I just don't have an ear for it. Probably the same reason why I can't sing, because I think I'm probably a bit tone deaf that way. So it's interesting. When I was a child, I used to play the piano when I was sad. And so it was a way for me to I was sad, I would play and I would feel better. It was a way that I would sort of express myself and not even know why I was sad. And so as an adult, I kind of stopped that. So what I do now is I journal.
Mhm.
But that's playing the piano kind of helped me evolve, I think, as a child. And so I don't really play now. I listen to Eric play. But when I was at my parents' house the other day, they had the playbook, like my piano playbook that I used to play from all the time when I
Yeah,
felt, sort of emotional.
yeah.
And I debated the other day on my mother's birthday if I should take it home. And I was like, nah, I'm going to leave it here. I didn't
Too
take
many
it.
sad memories? No.
No, it wasn't even sad memories. It was just, as a child, we feel so many emotions that you just don't know how to navigate through. And my outlet was playing the piano and learning, just reading music and learning how to play certain songs that I felt a connection to.
Yeah.
That as an adult, I just sort of lost a bit of that. But I do feel a sense of comfort having the piano in the house because I didn't have one for years and years until Eric and I met and we bought one. But yeah, that's a great question. That's so interesting. It's interesting because you asked me a question about sound, which is
Yeah.
the field that you're in.
Yeah. Well, now Eric can give you some sound therapy with on the piano. So
Exactly. And you can give me some sound therapy because I'm excited to try it actually. I never have. Nicole, tell us where people can find you.
yeah, they can find me at NicoleManes.com. That's Nicole, M like Monday, A November, Edward Sam.com. NicoleManes.com.
Amazing. Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm super excited for Nicole's journey into sound therapy and so grateful for her 10 years of dedication to NKPR. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the podcast. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at Natasha and NKPR. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.